The first time I saw my sister's face on my husband's phone, it wasn't in the way you'd expect. It wasn't an old family photo. It wasn't a group picture from a barbecue. It wasn't even innocent. It was intimate. Too intimate. It was a Wednesday afternoon in Lagos. The sun was blazing outside, but in my living room, the air was heavy with the scent of betrayal I didn't yet fully understand. I was folding laundry, mindlessly, the way you do when you've been running on autopilot for months, when I heard a faint ping from my husband, Tan's, phone. Tan was in the shower, and usually, I never touched his phone. I believed in privacy, in trust. But that day, my hands had a mind of their own. Maybe it was the fact that lately, he had been glued to it, smiling at messages I never got to see. Maybe it was the way he had started coming home late, smelling faintly of expensive perfume I didn't own. I picked it up. It was WhatsApp. A notification banner showed a blurred preview, and my heart nearly stopped. It was my sister, Adana. Not just her name. Her picture. A photo I had never seen before. Her lips slightly parted, her eyes looking at the camera with that sultry confidence only she could pull off. My hands trembled. I opened the chat. At first, I scrolled quickly, desperate to prove to myself it was innocent. Maybe she was sending him ideas for my birthday surprise. Maybe this was one of those silly misunderstandings people laugh about later. But the more I scrolled, the more my stomach tightened into a knot. The messages were playful at first. Teasing. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. But then they shifted into something else, something heavier. Her telling him she missed his warmth. Him telling her how much he loved the curve of her smile. And then, pictures. Not indecent in the explicit sense, but intimate in a way that screamed secrecy. Her in a silk nightgown, sitting cross-legged on her bed. Her biting her lip. Her hand near her face as if caressing a thought. The timestamps told me this had been going on for months. I felt cold. Colder than I had ever felt, even during Harmattan. Tan's laugh drifted from the bathroom, a carefree sound that made bile rise in my throat. I put the phone down, my mind racing. My sister. Adana. She had always been the free-spirited one. The one with the perfect figure, the quick wit, the charm that could light up any room. Growing up, people always compared us, she was the fire, I was the calm. She was the one everyone noticed, I was the one they forgot until they needed advice or comfort. But she was also my blood. My sister. My best friend once upon a time. We'd shared secrets, clothes, late-night confessions about crushes and heartbreaks. She had been my maid of honor at my wedding. I trusted her. And now, she was in my husband's phone, wrapped in a conversation that had no business existing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march into the bathroom and throw his phone in his face. But something in me stopped. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal wrapped in family ties. If I reacted now, in anger, I would only get lies, denials, maybe even a twisted version of events that made me look crazy. No. I needed the truth, the whole truth. And I needed to decide how to deliver my response in a way that would leave no room for anyone to paint me as the villain. That night, I barely spoke at dinner. Tund noticed, of course. "You're quiet," he said, spooning jollof rice onto his plate. "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, I was screaming. Every movement he made, every casual glance, felt like a slap. My sister's face kept flashing in my mind like a neon sign. When my phone buzzed later, I almost ignored it, until I saw it was from Adana. "Hey sis. Haven't seen you in ages. We need to catch up soon." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. She was pretending everything was fine. That burned more than the pictures. Over the next few days, I played the role of the unsuspecting wife. I cooked. I laughed at his jokes. I asked about his day. All the while, I was piecing together a plan. I needed to understand their relationship fully, how far it had gone, and more importantly, why. Why would my own sister do this to me? So, I started watching. And listening. Tand was careless sometimes. He would leave his phone on the table when he went to the kitchen. I never pried before, but now, every moment was an opportunity. I began taking pictures of their chats with my own phone. Every message, every photo, every audio note where his voice dropped into a tone I had never heard him use with me. The more I gathered, the more I realized this wasn't just a fling. They were making plans. Real plans. To meet in hotels when he traveled for work. To take trips abroad once things settled down. And the most chilling message of all. When she finds out, we'll deal with it. She's too soft to make a scene. That sentence burned into me like hot iron. Too soft? They thought I would cry quietly and fade away? No. They had underestimated me. One Saturday morning, I told Tund I was visiting my cousin in Ibadan for the weekend. I kissed him goodbye, my lips brushing the mouth that had kissed my sister, and left. But I didn't go to Ibadan. I went to a small guest house near Adana's apartment and checked in under a fake name. From there, I called Adana and told her I was in town for business and wanted to meet for brunch. She agreed instantly, her voice warm, as if nothing was wrong. When we met at the cafe, she looked radiant. Her hair was in soft waves, her makeup flawless. She hugged me tightly. Too tightly. We chatted about nonsense, work, fashion, gossip. She asked about Tund like nothing had changed, even laughed at some inside joke they must have shared without me. I studied her face, wondering if guilt would flicker even for a second. It didn't. Finally, I leaned back, sipped my drink, and said quietly, I saw the messages, Adana. Her smile froze. She blinked, tried to laugh it off, but the color drained from her face. What messages? She asked, her voice a little too high. On Tund's phone. The ones with your pictures. The ones about missing his warmth. The ones where you make plans behind my back. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I held her gaze, calm but unyielding. I don't want your excuses, I said. I just want to know, why? Her hands trembled as she reached for her bag. It's complicated. No, Adana. It's simple. You wanted what was mine. And he let you. She looked down, tears welling. I didn't mean for it to happen. We were just talking at first. You were always busy, and he. Stop. I raised a hand. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. The cafe around us hummed with life, clinking cups, chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine. But at our table, the silence between words was suffocating. I didn't shout. I didn't cause a scene. I simply stood up, dropped some cash for my untouched meal, and walked away. But I wasn't done. Not even close. That night, I returned home and cooked Tund's favorite dinner. He was surprised, delighted even. After we ate, I told him I had a family photo project I wanted him to help with. I set up the projector in the living room, dimmed the lights, and began a slideshow. It started with pictures from our wedding. Our honeymoon. Family gatherings. And then, the next slide was a picture of Adana in her silk nightgown. Then another of their text messages, blown up so large the words glared on the wall. Tund froze. His fork clattered onto the plate. I didn't say a word. I just clicked through image after image, message after message, the evidence playing out like a film neither of them could deny. When the final slide faded, the room was silent except for the sound of his shallow breathing. You thought I was too soft to make a scene, I said quietly. Consider this, my opening act. I stood, took my phone, and walked out, leaving him in the darkness, surrounded by the faces and words that had betrayed me. The morning after my slideshow, the air in our home was thick with unspoken words. Tund hadn't slept in our bed. I found him slumped on the couch, still in the clothes from the night before, his eyes red and haunted. When I walked past him to make breakfast, he sat up suddenly. "Bola, please. I can explain." I stopped and looked at him, my voice flat. "No. You've done enough explaining to her." He flinched. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I tilted my head. "Mistakes happen once. This was a months-long decision." His mouth opened, but I walked away before he could speak again. My phone buzzed while I was in the kitchen. It was my mother. "Bola," she said, her voice tight. "Your sister called me crying. She says you've humiliated her. She says you're making things worse than they are." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "She betrayed me, Mama. She and my husband have been seeing each other. And you're calling me about her tears?" "Family is family," my mother said. "You should handle this quietly. We don't need the whole world knowing our business." There it was. The age-old Nigerian family code: hide the shame, protect the image. I took a deep breath. "Mama, you raised me to stand for truth. I'm not dragging this into the street, but I will not protect people who stabbed me in the back." She sighed heavily. "I'm calling a family meeting. This is not how sisters treat each other." "Oh, believe me," I said coldly. "I agree." By that evening, word had spread within the family. My cousins were texting me. My aunt called, half whispering like it was some scandal from a village tale. Everyone wanted to hear my side, but I knew they were also speaking to Adana. She, of course, was painting herself as the victim. When the family meeting day came, I arrived early. The living room at my mother's house was already full, aunts, uncles, cousins, all whispering in corners. Tund was there too, sitting awkwardly beside my father. And then Adana walked in. She wore a white dress, her hair tied back neatly, her makeup minimal, the picture of innocence. She avoided my eyes. Mama called the meeting to order, her voice trembling. "We are here to settle this matter before it destroys this family. Bola, tell us what happened." I looked around the room. Their eyes were waiting, some sympathetic, others skeptical. "I don't need to tell a story," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'll show you." I connected my phone to the TV. Just like with Tund, I played the slideshow, the texts, the photos, the audio notes. The room was silent except for the occasional gasp. When the last image faded, I turned to my sister. "This is not gossip. This is not rumor. This is truth." Adana's face was pale, her hands gripping her dress so tightly her knuckles whitened. Some of my aunts looked away in shame. One uncle muttered something under his breath. Finally, my father spoke. "Adana, is this true?" Tears filled her eyes. She nodded. I didn't mean to hurt her. I was lonely." "You were lonely?" I cut in. "You had the whole world, Adana. But you came for my home. My husband. My life." The room was heavy with tension. Some family members tried to soften it, suggesting reconciliation. Others said what she did was unforgivable. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't cry. I simply said, "I'm done with both of you." Then I picked up my bag and walked out, leaving them to sit in the mess they'd made. 2 weeks passed after that family meeting. I didn't speak to Tund. I didn't speak to Adana. My phone was a battlefield of missed calls and unread messages. In those 2 weeks, I moved quietly. I visited my lawyer. I gathered financial records. I transferred my personal savings into a separate account. I wasn't just leaving, I was making sure I left with my dignity intact. The final push came when Tan showed up at my office unannounced. He looked worn out, like life had drained him. "Bola, please," he said, standing in my doorway. "We can fix this. I'll end things with her. Just, don't throw away our marriage." I stared at him for a long moment. "You already threw it away. You just didn't expect me to notice." That weekend, my family gathered again for my cousin's engagement party. I wasn't going to go at first, but then I realized it was the perfect stage for my final act. Everyone who had taken sides, everyone who had whispered behind my back, they'd all be there. I arrived in a simple black dress, minimal jewelry, and a calmness that was almost frightening. Tand was there, hovering near my father. Adana was by the drinks table, laughing with cousins as if nothing had happened. When the music dipped for the toast, I stepped forward. "Before we celebrate," I said into the microphone, "I'd like to share a quick story." The room quieted. Every eye turned to me. It's about a woman who found her sister's face on her husband's phone. She didn't shout. She didn't fight. She simply gathered the truth and let the truth speak for itself. I paused, scanning the room until my gaze landed on Adana, and then on Tund. In the end, she realized something: betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply removing yourself from the table where respect is no longer being served. I set the microphone down, reached into my purse, and pulled out a white envelope. Inside was my signed divorce petition. I walked over to Tund, placed it in his hand, and said quietly, "You're free." "So am I." Then I turned to Adana. "Whatever you two think you've won, you've already lost. Because trust, once broken, can never be bought back." The room was silent. Even the DJ didn't dare play music. You could feel the weight of it, the discomfort crawling across faces. People shifted, coughed, looked at the floor. And just like that, no one had anything left to say. I picked up my clutch and walked out. Months later, I had my own apartment, my own peace. I saw friends. I traveled. I started a small business I'd been putting off for years. Adana and Tund? They tried to make it work, but it didn't last. The same lack of loyalty they showed me, they eventually showed each other. The last I heard, they weren't even on speaking terms. And me? I learned the hardest, most liberating truth of all: you don't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes, your silence is the loudest statement you can make. When trust is shattered, you owe no one the courtesy of your silence if it means enabling their deceit. Family or not, respect is the foundation of every relationship. Without it, there's nothing worth saving.